I know that the veteran at Arlington have been elevated to a very high priority of honor and so forth. Something that I had never experienced or thought would ever happen, because when people were killed over there, they were just put in a bedspread and or shelter half or whatever it was, like just tossed into the ground, and then eventually they dug them all back up and made things more official and set up a whole bunch of cemeteries over in France. The one I went over there in 1971. I could see that that one cemetery there on the beach, and as you look through those graves, you could pick out people from your division. But there was a wall there, I remember, that was a big wall, and there was all kinds of names, and all those guys were missing in action. You wonder, whatever happened to somebody that's missing in action? Apparently, there's not even in dog tags. Everybody had dog tags. You had two of them. One, you stayed with the body, and yeah, if you died, then of course there'd be one on the body if it was intact. It's amazing to see so many different people, ex-veterans. Of course, they got 3 different wars here, and World War II is getting less and less. That has elevated in their minds memories from the past, which most people don't care about, really, or don't think about. It's just like when somebody dies in your family. Once the funeral is over and the gifts are given and the sympathies, the hugs, I probably did the same myself. You don't ever see them again, and they don't ever want to talk about it, and you like to talk about it, but nobody want to bring it up, not even family. So it's good to see so many of these people wearing their caps, and you think you're not the only person that remembers some of the things that took place. But like I say, most of these people are support groups of the infantry. They never have really, like over here, they have no idea what's going on any more than you would, of what actual combat is like, and loss of life and whatever, all that shenanigans that go on with war, people killing each other for no reason at all. I suppose it's comradeship, meeting others who have similar feelings, that they like to see the sites that the government has put up, and especially a special memorial to us after 60-some years. That's what I mean, no big deal. All of a sudden it's a big deal. And so you try to get into the feeling that it is a big deal, that they have recognized World War II with a big memorial in Washington for the first time after all this time.
I'll slide in there.
But it's just like life goes on. People, most people, they got too much going. Little babies like you got, fighting with your husband, taking care of them, work. You can't really think about all that other stuff. Once in a while, certain people do, not most of them. I would like to mention that in Normandy,
No, sir.
our high officials
In the back of the bus.
didn't know about the hedgerows that were in that area, which were put up by ancient people that lived in that areas, to separate areas. They would have 2 entrances, one on one corner and the other, and a long path. But these hedgerows would be piled up with about 15 feet of dirt, and in it would be all kinds of trees and shrubbery, and it would be various heights. You could hear the German brogue on the other side, but you couldn't see them. And the Germans would, what we did at the beginning was send in a one squad in an opening, and the Germans was at the other opening, just waiting, like pigeons. They just killed them, but it got so bad that our division, some of the guys, when they were ordered to move, wouldn't move. You see the officers are back there with their maps. They don't have any idea what's happening, and they don't care what's happening.
They just want you to
They have an object.
going. Yeah.
Why aren't you taking that in this amount of time? They don't care what the losses are. That's what I mean. Sometimes you get a little bit. You see so much here about how precious military people are. It just doesn't register in my mind that that's the case. It's your objective, the honor of the officers. They fight the war, like I say, from the maps. Very few ever go up front to find out whatever's going on.
I'm going to send her that picture of you.
We picked up Patton when he came in August. And then our division was transferred from the 1st Army into the 3rd Army with him and his other group. So the rest of the war we was fought was under the 3rd Army. But basically, by the way, they also said you never had brothers together. My brother was with me. Only the funniest thing, they said if you enlisted, you could choose. Well, that was true. You could choose. He worked in an A&P store, and he chose quartermaster. That's way back. Supplies, safe, unless accidentally they get hit by airplanes or accidentally. But once basic training was over, which was about 6 weeks, and you learned to be a soldier, they transferred him to C Company in the infantry. One day my name was called, and they said, why, I don't know. I think in World War II, with all the Southerners that we had, a lot of them couldn't read or write. My best buddy was named Dewey Brinegar from Grassy Creek, North Carolina. He drove the big medical truck.
That way we can shuffle
He couldn't read or write.
We're not going to be here long enough. You'll be able to stand back up.
But it was funny. Our division, at the beginning, they thought maybe these guys could ride in trucks. Some big smart guy back in Washington figured that you could fight a war driving your infantry guys up in trucks. They finally came to their senses and said, you can't do that. The guys in the infantry, they got to walk. That's why you call them ground pounders. Well, that changed the structure of the division. So anybody my age, I went in at 20, so but fortunately, I had reported to the medics. Maybe because I had a high school education, that probably might have done it. And since I was in the medics, I got transferred to the same regiment my brother was in. But I was in an aid station. Otherwise, I could have been in the company with those guys. Those guys, they didn't last too long, being right with the troops and so forth. So him and I, we both made it, but he was wounded twice. And I think at the end of you take an infantry company of 200 people, you can turn that over about 2.5 times. What you're bringing in all these replacements. And at the end of the war, I think there was 7 guys that was from C Company, from the original group. Only 7. We had over about 3,300 killed, about 25,000 wounded. That's just one division, and they had a whole slew of divisions, But we landed, as I said, in England, and then eventually, when the invasion took place, they had those 2 American, Omaha and Utah. Omaha, fortunately, it wasn't where we was going to go in. There was 2,600 people killed there. I don't know how many. That was really a catastrophe. But our beach, there was about 100 and something. Wasn't too bad. But then when we broke in, get it off the ship and all that kind of stuff, eventually your hands got pretty callous from digging little slit trenches. You wanted to dig a little holes, at least be below the below,
Fire.
below the ground. See, the Germans used to have their boots had nails on the bottom of them.
We will switch.
Sometimes when they're marching on the roads, you can see sparks from their feet. But these hedgerows I was talking about,
One of us might, that may Rob may come up.
they just
And I'll go up and help her.
you just couldn't get through them. You see, you didn't go very far.
You can take a little break.
Because the officers were upset with that whole deal. But eventually, once what happened really, eventually some sergeant came up with, who was a guy in a tank, if he put a big cutters on the front of this tank,
Push a bottle of water versus.
and he got back about 100 yards, and you could put some guys in the back of the tank. A lot of guys rode in the back, or a few marching behind. Then he could make that hit. This was a Piper Cub that they used for observation. I'm sure we did the same thing. At nighttime, you could hear this thing like a wash machine motor get about dark. And they'd throw out big flares, and the whole place would light up. They would, this one time it moved into a big woods. Now, Normandy was apple orchard country, all kinds of apples. Cider, huge barrels in the cider in the basements.
Really?
The Germans drank out of them, and we came along and we drank out of them. And I'd never heard of anybody being poisoned. In this particular case, we'd moved into this big orchard, and this plane came over and dropped this, and the whole apple orchard was full of dead cows. Don't ask me how come they're all in there, but you could sit down by a dead cow and get your rations out and eat them. Eating Hopper now, her husband and all her brothers were over in the Russian POW camps in the mines for 3 years, and they're all dead now, of course. But I just heard from her last Christmas, and
No, I'm just going to check out real quick.
she'd forgotten English she had learned a long time ago. She just speaks
It's open.
mostly German. Showed some pictures of her grandkids all at the wedding. They look just as normal as we do as far as looks, as far as that goes. There's a picture there of me and a friend at the reenactment 2 years ago. I still got my old uniform,
Yeah.
and of course,
Does it fit still?
yeah,
Yeah.
but a little snug. And finally, we got medals some years ago. So I took the. This would be my particular. I was a medic. It's look something like that. Let's see here. Like this one here. That's a German machine gun nest, but we would use that because it had straw on the bottom, it had boards over the top or tree trunks, limbs. Sleep in. You had protection from above and a nice soft. We were a little leery at first because maybe they might be booby trapped. But that was just this old machine gun nest. Let's see. Here's all a bunch. A lot of times we rode in the back of our truck where we carried a lot of our medical stuff when we was moving from some areas. These
Just a little,
I'm on
little
the
FYI here.
right
Most
side
of this
there.
trip through here through Arlington.
A bunch of us medics rescued a colonel that had been strafed across. Just because of that action, the guys on the litter got a Bronze Star. If it had been anybody else, nothing. But an officer, it made a difference.